Hi everyone, I'm Alon and Diana, the CEO of October Health. We're here for another episode of Pressure Point. Really excited to have Diana Johnson with me. She's the head of HR for Sub-Saharan Africa at BAT. Super interesting and exciting background, and really honored to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. So again, just, quick intro. Very happy to be here. So I'm Diana. Almost reaching now, I think, 4 years and a half, let's say, in Africa. So quite exciting for me. I'm from Brazil originally. And then, of course, for a lot of career reasons, I have moved around a lot. So moved around in Brazil, but moved, a lot across the world. And then in Africa, I've been in Kenya, and now, enjoying the beautiful Cape Town. So a part of being, taking care of HR for this, huge area. So I have a kind of a business admin, more of the background, and specialize in HR. Quite passionate about, diversity, and we're going to talk about something kind of more similar today. And then did a kind of, a master's degree, also focused on human resources abroad. Have an amazing little, daughter, 5 years old. So she's, her life is kind of been Africa. And here we are, and excited to have a nice chat.
Awesome. So really excited to have you here. So maybe just to set the scene for our discussion, we're going to be chatting through, psychological safety, what that means as a starting point. I think importantly, the role that leadership can play in creating an environment where there is psychological safety, because if there's not, there are often very negative consequences for both individuals and the organization, and also tools or technologies that can be put in place to create that environment or mitigate negative outcomes. So maybe to start off, what does psychological safety mean to you within an organization?
Yeah, look, I always say that, sometimes we go through periods in, organizations, and especially in the HR space, where there's a lot of buzz, right, and buzzwords. So I think psychological safety is kind of the buzzword of the year, but not on the, for the wrong reasons, but for the good reasons, yeah? And I think I'm not going to be the ones that are going to go back to COVID and talk about COVID, but we also need to recognize what the COVID period did and what it resonated with some of the concepts that I think psychological safety comes into play. So for me, what psychological safety is, it's about how do you so it's about feeling and emotions. So how do you feel about sharing? How do you feel about challenging? How do you feel about literally saying what you think, what is on your mind, without any type of discomfort or any type of, I think I'm going to have a reprisal on this one, or people will think differently about me. So it's about literally how you feel to share. As simple as that. And complicated for me to think is, why would we have environment, or why would we foster an environment where people would not feel comfortable to just, share an opinion? So I think straight to the concept, that it's literally what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to sum it up, right? Because your point in the opposite of it is, why wouldn't you want an environment where people can just speak their mind, right, without fear of consequence, as you say? So, I think it's so important that you have this from an innovation perspective, from a culture perspective, from a way of work perspective, because if people can share, obviously business outcomes will be better as well. But if you think about it in the context of an individual, I think you touched on, COVID's been a challenging period, but I think business itself, the macro environment, has been complicated, right? Both if you look at what's happening in the world, but even if you look at your organization, the amount of change and transformation that's going on. Do you want to maybe, touch on that and kind of speak to, how the organization adapts and how you maintain that safety for employees through that?
Yeah, and I think you touch on really good points, right? Because it's and I also don't feel it's about the wave of transformation, because for me it would be not even ideal to say, I'm in a company and the only one transforming. So I think, recent studies everywhere, when you ask CEOs what is happening with your company last year, this year, we are transforming. So everyone is on that wave of transformation, which for me, it's not a wave. It's not something happening now. It's just because the way the world is, the information is, technology is, the amount of innovation and, disruption you need to create, it needs to be all the time.
Yeah, otherwise, constant is change.
Otherwise, I'm sorry, right? You're not going to survive. So you're not going to be here in the next few years if you don't innovate as a company. So I think that's one in terms of the pace of the change. And then people say, no, maybe we are on the top of the curve. I don't think so. Or we're going to see a break on something when we talk about mental health and burnout and psychological safety coming into that space. But I don't think we are on a peak. I think this will continue. And how, as humans, as professionals, we are going to learn to be resilient, to adapt, and to foster the psychological safety, right? So I think from our organizational point of view, I don't think we are perfect. I think we are talking a lot about psychological safety this year. Last year, we ran a climate survey, and it was one of the pain points that came in terms of, are we totally free, to speak, to share our minds? And it's not majority of the organization. So you see functions or you see, kind of parts of the business where it is still a concern. And then what is interesting, it's a bit of my role to play, is for you to kind of understand the root cause on why that is happening. Yes. And also, which for me it's the most interesting part, is when you really deep dive to see that in fact there's myth. Because when you actually say, okay, when was the last time that something was shared or was challenged? Did something happen to somebody? No, right? So you're afraid of what actually? You're afraid of something that hasn't happened. You never even seen it happen. So how these myths get bigger and sometimes becomes a monster, not written. And then suddenly new joiners come, recruiters come, new recruiters come. And then people just, here you can't say much or you can't speak. So where this comes from? And then part of my role and my team is to dig. So let's understand. Let's not, because if you stay in the surface, you're not going to solve it. So you need to understand what is in there. Is it the behaviors of the line managers? Is it your own behavior? Is it that you challenged or you shared? You did, so you don't fear. But then you felt you were not listened. So then in your mind is,
what's the point? Yeah.
What's the point? So it's not about the fear to share, but nobody did nothing with what I said. So, they don't value. So it's very different from, are you afraid to share or you're not feeling valued or listened? So my role, my team's role is we need to dig deeper to understand what is happening. Is there myth in place? How do we break them? How do we reinforce the message? And if we find cases where something did happen which doesn't align with our values, with our culture, what did we do with that line manager? How do we fix the problem? So it's a journey we are in, literally. I think there's a lot of work to do, and we need to explain the concept. We need to explain, as I said in the beginning, why wouldn't all of us want a psychologically, safe culture or place? Because we all have our opinions. They're different. Because we are different. I come from a different country. So the way I see things, the way I think, it is different from the South Africans. Of course it is. My background is different. My country is different. I was exposed to different things, the good and the bad. Not necessarily I'm right, but why wouldn't I share my opinion? So we grow as a team, we grow as a business. So it's not simple. I always say that it's something that, I wouldn't get in the page 8 of a book. You don't have, because the root causes are different, and we also need to understand.
Not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Never. And they can be different by market. So we take care of 20 plus markets in Africa. So there are differences by market, there are differences by culture, difference by functions, levels within the organization. So you see functions much more open to say, we don't have this problem here. By the way, Diana, do you say BET has a problem with no, we don't. And then you see other functions where say, no, it is an issue for us. So why it happens? Why here, not there? How can we cross-pollinate and learn with each other? So it is a journey, and we learn a lot.
So, I mean, you said try to make it as practical as possible for listeners or people watching. And I think, your starting point you said was the Pulse survey, where you kind of uncover, what these top issues are within different teams across levels, across tenors, etc. But how do you go about digging deeper, especially in an organization the size of BAT across 20 plus countries, as you say? how do you investigate and dig deeper to uncover what the causes are, whether it's a myth, whether there are any truths? What process do you and your team follow to do that?
Yeah, so I think the first one, yes. I think at the end of the day, we need to rely on data to help us understand, where the pain points, the burning issues come from. And the other thing that we are starting to scrap and unveil, because when you talk about psychological, I can't talk about this without talking about mistakes, right? Because at the end of the day, why people would be scared or, to share, because first they are scared to make a mistake, or they're scared, they fear that they did a mistake and they don't want to talk about it. They want to, so what's going to happen if I share that I did something wrong? And the other one is interesting things like we get, I just fear to be seen as incompetent. Or I fear that, because my question could be seen as silly or stupid, so I don't want to be seen that I don't know. I don't want to be seen that, that person is, that professional is not so good. Why he's asking that question? So you start unveiling those little things, and those little things is where, your culture pillars needs to work on. Because at the end of the day, it's not about a physical fear. Nothing's going to happen. And when you ask, they say, yeah, we know. Probably I'm not going to be fired. I just don't want people to look at me and think that I'm incompetent or I did a big mistake. Oh, look what he did. Well, look what she did. And then you start, unveiling those things to understand. But if you really share a mistake, but not focus on the mistake, but focus on the learnings, how do you think people will see you? It's the other way around, right? So it's not the hero to zero, it's the opposite, it's the zero to hero. And then don't focus on the mistake. Focus on, yes, this happened. What did I learn? What did I do differently? And then even the way the team is going to look at you is going to say, okay, so this is where we bring things like humanizing leadership. How do you equip line managers with how to be more vulnerable? Because we all make mistakes. And then we start giving some metaphors, it's like, you're growing, you're in school. If you start trying to remember what you went through, when did you learn the most? Probably when you didn't score a 10 or a 9, probably when you scored a 5 or 6, or even, a 2 or 3, depending on the students you work on. But this is where you really learn, because this is where I say, okay, I have a problem I need to fix. You don't learn when everything is amazing. And then I also say that it's very easy to be a leader when everything is great. When all the numbers are green, the team is happy, they're all clapping, that's fantastic. But it's not testing you. So the great leadership comes when your psychological safety score is, sorry for the word, shit. The people are not happy, the team is disengaged. This is where leadership comes from. So then we are starting to bring things like, how do we humanize the leaders? How the leaders can bring their mistakes. Because when they do that, this is when they open the door for the team to say, whoa, right? And then I'm going to quote something because I just heard it today. So, our global CEO is here and, he's amazing. His leadership style is amazing. And then at the end, he was talking about, the 5 imperatives that for him, it's a success for the business. So he went, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last one was about the culture. And then he came to say, this thing of, you fear to speak up. This needs to stop because in today's world, with the technology, with the information, we don't know everything. And then he even, holding the mic, he said, do you think I know everything? And you see all those faces. And he said, I don't. And it's even impossible. And that's why I surround myself with very good people like you, because you know what you know. You know because you're here in the ground. So I can't say how this product needs to look or the pricing of this. I'm not here. You are there fighting every day in the market to sell. You tell me. And if I say something and what I say is nonsense, tell me it's nonsense. And then explain to me why it's nonsense. So it's all about, if you have the global CEO of the company saying that,
leading by example,
you literally open the space where people say, I can also do the same thing. I can share. And it's okay to share. It's for the bigger good, right? So this is the type of things we are trying to bring. As I said, it's a journey. We want to build quite cool, toolkits for line managers to say, you don't know how to start. Let me give you, some tips. How do you, but I don't know how to be vulnerable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Oh, yes. And we don't like it, right? So, but how can I help you? It's a muscle. It's literally a muscle. You need to, gym. You need to exercise this. If you do it once, you maybe do a bit, sweat a bit. But then we're going to try and help line managers to, little steps on, if you start, you're going to see a major shift, in how the team sees the topic. And so this is a bit of the strategy we are.
Yeah, so it's definitely a work in progress, but I just want to highlight the one point that you mentioned, the group CEO made around, anyone within the business can raise a point or make an argument, but it's important that it's also data-driven. So people are not just raising things for the sake of raising them, but whoever's got the best data-driven argument or the most structured argument, that needs to be the best idea. It's not who the loudest person is or the person who's got the biggest title. It's about the person who makes that strong argument. And that's so empowering to the team to show that anyone can step forward and bring ideas forward, hopefully.
Yeah, and again, to your point, it was his fourth item, right? So just before the people, the culture, he said, look, data. And he said, I don't like to say data because everyone says data, but it's quality data, because we have this massive but non-organized, non-structured data, and how we bring it together so it's meaningful. So we really step to say, now it's predictive analytics. Now we are really, we understand the consumer, so we are not, guessing. And then this is where we do more, data-driven decisions. This is why I can look at you and challenge you, because say, look at the data, look at the trend, look at what we're seeing, look how we compare to each other. So this is where you start bringing a bit of, consistency. We generate different ideas. This is where innovation can, come with something different. So it's also and this is where I'm saying it's so important that we equip, line managers, especially, the new ones, first-time line managers. What are the little things or the little tools that you can practice to, from the beginning, start to create that culture, that it's okay. And even if you share your opinion or even if you challenge me and you are still wrong, it's also okay. You made me think. You made me say, he thinks different. So, and then we debate and then, we move forward. So it's all about debating and moving forward. But again, we need to exercise it. It's not simple. It makes people uncomfortable. It's not easy. Who likes to, share something bad? Nobody. It's human being, right? But it's about you take away the pressure of the mistake and you focus on the learning.
Yeah. I love that framing of learning and focusing on the positive from the negative, and hopefully, putting procedures or processes in place to make sure that you don't make the same mistake again. So the whole organization is better off as a result. I want to, maybe shift slightly, although I think it's related. You touch on resilience, right? Or, the ability for leaders to kind of, steady the ship when the sea is not smooth, right? And it's rocky out there. And keep the team motivated. And I think, that's not an easy thing for a leader to do, because as you say, if everything's green and, things are going as they should, anyone can lead an organization. But, kind of given your years of experience, given your work with different leaders, what are some of the things that leadership can do to steady the ship when things are not smooth sailing?
Yeah, look, and I think it's quite interesting, because I normally don't kind of do a distinction between what you go even personally from what you go professionally, right? So we also go through the highs and the lows in life, in family, in friends, in other circles. So it's all about how do you, for me, it's, if you look at it and you said about, studying the ship, it's about where are you going? So for me, the leaders with their teams is how do you keep them, looking at the vision and the mission that you set. And yes, it's not going to be, a calm sea and, a straight line, go for it. No, it is a bumpy road. It's going to be, the waves and high and the lows, but the vision is there. We are all going, together to the same place or the same height. So for me, when we say talk about resilience, bouncing back, which is not easy, because at the same time we kind of forget that we say, and in the organization, I always play that, line managers and employees. Like a line manager was not an employee, and he has the same feelings. He's in the same boat. He's suffering. And then sometimes we are restructuring. The line manager is there, making very tough calls, but his job is also on the line. He doesn't know if he's going to be there tomorrow, but he needs to be there, for the team. So it's not an easy job. But at the end of the day, if if you really believe on where you're going, the direction is clear, you will go through the bumpy roads. And even when it's too bumpy, and I said, okay, now that all the tires broke, we don't have a car anymore, right? Fine. But we still need to get there, right? And then we find a different way. For me, when the vision is clear, the ambition is clear, you will find a way. And the team will help out, right? So we'll put our sleeves, we will walk, we will carry, we will do. Because we see where we are going. So for me, the resilience is very linked to how clear your purpose is and how you're able to communicate to the team what that vision is. And they have to believe. They can't just say, okay, that's unachievable, that's impossible. Nobody, you're not going to get there. So for me, it's very related. And again, I think, as you said in the beginning, how can you do all that without a kind of an environment where you can say what you think? Or you can even say, do you really think that place we're going makes sense? So something happened externally, that would still make sense. Can't we, deviate a bit? So you also have a space to challenge where we're going. And this is where the resilience comes from. Yeah. So let's not give up. It will come.
Yeah. And learn again, right? Learn from new information or adapt to your situation.
And this is why you come and say, fail. Yes, fail, but fail fast, right? It's okay to fail, but you can't fail and then, you stick to that because you're so caught on the mistake that, it paralyzes you. It doesn't make, oh my God, it didn't work. Oh my God, we lost, 20 million pounds. Yeah, shit. But it's fine because if you don't fail, and then we always bring, you can bring any of those success stories. Think about, did Facebook be success day one? No. Did other things be, what they are in day one? No, it's about the resilience. They failed and they went again and they try again and then you change a bit the product and then, and there you go. So in organizations, it's the same thing. Okay, when you're very big, like BAT, it's not so easy to shift a ship that is this size. Yeah. Even you're there, kind of everyone is, we want to go to the right, but it takes time to change process, policies. It's a company that, 46,000 employees across the group. So nothing is so easy when the company is so big because it's just too stiff to move. But at the end of the day, it's all about how do we feel, and you're pursuing the same thing. Because at the end of the day, we always say the enemy can't be here between me, you. The enemy is outside. The enemy is the competitor. The enemy is the illicit trade. The enemy is non-balanced regulation. The enemy is it's the high interest rate in the US. It's the now the new currency in Zimbabwe. That's what we need to work about. It can't be here. Yeah. So this thing I can't say because what you're going to think about me. You're wasting time. You're wasting energy. When we should be putting our energy on those challenges. So the challenges, we can't have challenges inside. Yeah. They're outside. And look at Africa. It's too much already outside for you to add, internal. So it's in bringing and reinforcing those messages all the time. Yeah, and I think the way you've tied in the psychological safety to, you're never going to do it alone, right? And if you don't have the team working together, the team is not going to be able to achieve these very difficult things, right? And that psychological safety is almost the foundation of having an effective team that can question and operate in the way that they need to without just only following orders, right? There'll be a time to do that, but there's a time to question as well. Yeah.
So maybe kind of shifting focus slightly on other kind of tools or techniques or technology that you're using to build the right culture, to support employees. I think you've touched on, the world is tumultuous. We're dealing with a lot in the macro environment. Every business is adapting. How do people sustain this kind of chaos, right, in a way that they can continue to perform at the highest level? So what can you do as an organization to support employees?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple. For me, when we started the conversation talking about psychological safety and creating that environment, I'm a strong believer that it's more on the message and what you want to do than tools, right? Because sometimes, especially also in big organizations like BAT, we are so massive, focused and obsessed by the tool, by the process, because you need to complete this by this day. You need to go to the system and put this. When I always say that the tool should facilitate. The tool, it's not the message. I can't sit with you and give you a very powerful, mid-year performance discussion because of the tool. Because I need to, these are the sessions, the sections that I need to complete in the tool. The tool is just there, so you have something you can consult later, or me using data, I can get all the information of the company and do some analysis. That's what the tools are for. So they can't come first, then the message, then the process. So I think now we are shifting a bit the messaging in saying, let's please simplify first, then automate. Let's please see if it's scalable before bringing a new tool. Let's please see if, it's the message and the process is right, instead of putting the tool in front. So I think we're on that obsession of also catching up so much on the technology.
For the sake of it.
Yeah, kind of artificial intelligence. We need to bring this thing with this tool, this digital. And then we were so obsessed by the tool, by the technology, and we forgot the message. We forgot the person. So I think we are not stepping back, but we are rewinding to say, no. The message is important. The person is important. The tool has to facilitate. The tool is to gather. The tool is to give you, for you to look and say, wow, look, let's compare, give you insights. But you can't be obsessed. And I always say that sometimes technology scares me because you see so amazing stuff. And then now all the discussions about the ChatGPTs of the world. And then companies like BAT, the first thing we'll do is, we need to make a policy on how to use ChatGPT because people now are using it for everything. And I'm kind of saying, let the people be, It's okay. If you're using the thing to summarize a text, or of course you can't misuse it. But it's also very difficult for you to stop people from using.
Like, don't use internet.
Yeah, it's like those kind of things. But now we need a policy to use. I understand we need to protect the company's data, the company confidential information. So is it, when you ask ChatGPT something, what is happening with the data you're putting there from BAT? Because maybe you're asking something, you're putting a number there, you're putting a confidential information there. And I think there's also those, question marks on where all this is going. And for me, being me, I always say, well, let me tell you something. We're all here with our phones and Google is listening. So I don't get your point anyway, but fine. So for us, it's, we're kind of trying to change a bit the message on, let's not be so obsessed. Let's do the right thing and use them, to elevate, to bring to a nice scale, to spread it quickly, instead of being so obsessed by it.
So it goes back to your point around the importance of leadership and leadership's role in communicating and connecting, in driving change or keeping teams focused, and being human, right? I think it is easy in this world that we live in to maybe overcomplicate or forget the human element, but at the end of the day, it comes down to that human connection. And maybe as we draw to a close, I think, easier to do and retain that connection in a smaller organization. But, BAT, you mentioned 46,000 people globally. I think it's over 6,000 across the continent. How do you scale that? I mean, to your point around, we need to know that something will scale, but how do you ensure that consistency in leadership? How do you ensure that consistency in the employee experience in such a big organization?
Yeah, I think I would jump to quickly say you don't, but what I think the small to the big, what companies do and need to do is, and we literally just refreshed our values, is to say, okay, from a leadership capability or a leadership behavior point of view, this is how we want leadership to look like. So being a great leader to BAT is, and then in terms, even very objective, and then to be very clear on the measure. The same way we say we need to grow profit by double digit, we need to grow this market, or we need to launch this brand. On the leadership and value side, it's not different from the rest of the business side. And so it's how clear that your message is. And then in our case, just to give an example, that we refreshed our values to say one of our values is that we are empowered through trust. So we start by trusting each other. The decisions are made at the right level. So the ones who are facing the problem should be the one deciding, not someone out there. So then those descriptors and those leadership behaviors, they are clear on what that leader means to BAT. And then based on that, you can sit down and have your performance discussions, and then you can
makes it saying measurable.
It is measurable. And then you can even say, you're doing, you're not doing. You're demonstrating great leadership, or you're not doing. To share, do's and don'ts. And this is where, when you talk about how scalable or consistent, this is how you get the most close to consistent as possible. As I said, the leadership in Africa will be different from Europe, from the Americas. There are nuances because of the culture of the country and what's important for that culture. But the leadership behaviors is what we call big. There's some things that are non-negotiable. So for us, a BAT leader is, and we don't negotiate those terms, as we don't negotiate the profit growth, the brand portfolio, the same thing. So you can't see it differently, because when you say this is a company strategic, navigator or a framework, it can't be. It should be there because it's part of who you are, and it's your competitive advantage. Because at the end of the day, when I say in today's world, there's no such thing of they don't know your product, right? So you can get a Samsung and an Apple. I'm pretty sure Apple guys know every single piece that a Samsung had. They know how to do that same screen. Let's just be honest. Yeah. You open the product, it's there. It's the same thing for BAT. Of course, we know each other's brand. What's inside? How do they get that flavor? We know everything. What do we don't know and have from each other? The people. Yeah. So you can copy everything. You can copy a product. Well, China is there, right? You can copy everything, but you can't copy the tact. You can't copy the behavior. You can't. And then once line managers and organizations understand that, then you move into a different direction. That's a bit of, my message.
So I think that's the perfect note to close on, and I think brings home and brings together this discussion which started around psychological safety and the importance of psychological safety in the organization, because ultimately that is what your people need to thrive. And I think you summed it up perfectly. The only, probably differentiator in a market between businesses, if we do, maybe a little bit cynical but true, is that it's the people, right? And if you don't get that people element right, your organization's not going to win. So it's the right thing to do, and it's critical to the success of an organization.
And we see that happening in real life. I do the joke on, you have an amazing, football or rugby team, and then they lose an amazing championship. What the first thing they do? They change the coach. Yeah. They buy new players. It's the people.
Yeah.
Because the other ones, the game strategy, you see it, right? They know, what they do. You go in and you see what the tactics are. What can't you copy? The players, the coach, the style, the vibe, the resilience of the players. That you can't copy it. And then you start buying the players, so you try to create that same culture, but it's not the same, right? So it's the same thing in the rugby, the football, that, a company is going through a very difficult moment. What do? They bring a CEO from I don't know where to, it's all about the people. And we need to start realizing that more than we do.
And it's about authenticity as well. To your point, you can't just bring in a completely new team and expect it to work, right?
Fake it until you make it.
If there's no belief in the mission or the alignment to that,
nothing is going to happen.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think so much that we unpacked there, starting with the psychological safety to the importance of resilience, importance of leadership, the importance of alignment within an organization, and ultimately the importance of people within that organization making the success a reality. So thanks so much. Love connecting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome.